Our state constitution is actually a rather more progressive document than our US Constitution, obviously. There are some very good things about our state constitution. For example, it ensures that there can only be one item per piece of legislation. It avoids some of the surprises that we're getting at the federal level these days. But there are also some very progressive aspects to that state constitution. I'm curious to know what, if any, aspects of our state constitution you feel are problematic and that you might wish to strive to change, to bring more in line, for example, with the United States Constitution.
I'm working on that and haven't finished my study.
Very good. Okay.
There's plenty of things they're doing that I'm working on, and so I'm trying to do it all in parallel.
Our state constitution has been amended a lot, and so I think that we can change some of those things if we just go through our amendment process. Like I said, the education thing, if we want to move in the direction of privatizing all education, we would need to go through that process of amending our state constitution. Some of the other things, I still need to do more study on that and figure out where, which of those things I would look at to amend.
Very good. Okay. Thank you. Anyone else?
I'd just like to know where you stand on the smoking ban, especially you with your stance on life and how it fits with that.
Well, I am a health promotion major from the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point, but one of the things that kind of bothered me that they were teaching at the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point was that in order to make sure that people are healthy, we need to write it into laws. And I don't think that that is right for us to do that. In order to make sure that people are healthy, we need to convince them that they need to be healthier. We don't need to write it into a law.
Yeah, I'm a non-smoker. I think it's stupid, it stinks, it costs money, and it's unhealthy. I don't know why people do it, but they do. But I agree that if you don't like smoking in a restaurant, don't go there. If you don't want to work in a smoky environment, don't work there.
So would you each go so far as to support a state law that just said that clear labeling was all that was needed? That an establishment just needed to decide?
Yeah, and that's disclosure, and that should apply to everything, because that's the opposite is fraud. And so the answer, the solution, is to not use force. When you say there ought to be a law, you're saying let's use force, the police. That applies to everything. If you want a law to do it, I'd like to have a law against chewing gum with your mouth open. But that's an obvious extreme. But there's a million people who would like to have laws to control people. So I say what we do is if you're really hot on that, and I would join it, lobby, picket in front of that building, tell them, negotiate with the owner, tell them you're losing a lot of customers, make a little room out back, and so forth. Country Corners Restaurant, I like Western music, it's in the southeast part of town. They voluntarily went no smoking inside, and the smokers smoke on the porch, and it's working fine. They did it on their own. So, got to watch out using force and negotiate instead. See, people get in the habit of going to the government for everything, for money and for control. And it gets abusive.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that we shouldn't be going to the government to control every little bit that we don't like. I think that when it comes to the issue of smoking, the owner of the property should be able to decide that. And like Dave said, that if you wanted to get rid of smoking at that establishment, you know, sign a petition, do something where you're communicating with the actual owner of that property and that establishment. A lot of times, we would, you know, I see groups that would rather go ahead and make a law instead of going and communicating with the group that they have a problem with. And I don't believe that that promotes a good society.
Let me break it down to somewhat more, what would become very personal issues. For example, there are laws that state that children must be buckled into a car or in certain kinds of seating. Where do you fall on something like that?
I would say that in that case, I would say that we make a general law that says parents ought to protect the life of their children, and then let the parents decide what the best way to do that is. And if the parent fails to protect the life of their children, then that parent should be prosecuted under that law.
Yeah, I think that's too vague. I go back to my core principle, which I find works for everything. It's, you know, I've been working on this for a long time, and that is that you can't violate or threaten someone else's rights. If you're driving a car and you've got people in a dangerous position in that car, you're putting them at risk. You are putting them at risk. And if they're beneath responsible age, or whatever you call it, you know, under 18, then as a parent you're responsible to take action to protect them because they don't know enough to do it themselves. And that's a lot more specific than being nice and, you know, taking care of your friends and all that. This is more specific. You're putting them at risk. And on that basis, it violates their rights. Always get onto a principle, not just I like this, or it's better, and, you know, be nice to everyone. You can do anything with that.
I would say that I am on a principle there, and the principle is protecting life. And so if you are protecting life in the way that you know works, then you are following the law. If you're not protecting life in a way that or you are protecting life in a way that has no scientific backing that it works or any of those things, then I would say that you are violating that person's rights.
So specifically with the enforcement of that, if say we didn't have a seatbelt law, would you say a police officer should be able to pull you over simply because they observed someone driving in your car without a seatbelt because you're putting them in danger?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Now, in Canada, I've lived in Canada. They can stop you if an adult isn't wearing a seatbelt, and I'm against that because that's your choice. If I don't want to wear a seatbelt, that's my business. I'm not violating anyone else's rights. But guess why they're concerned? They have free health care. If people are careless, it costs them more on health care. So that they feel that gives them the right to be your mother and tell you how to live because they're paying for your health care. That's another secondary, what you call a moral hazard to the government guaranteeing things, that it shows up in other ways. They stand at you know, what do you call it, where you go around on an intersection?
Roundabouts.
Not the roundabout, but where you do the turns where you go over a big freeway. Why can't I? You know, interchange, you know, with the little circles you go around. They're standing right there doing that and pulling people over. I was on the highway once and they had airplanes in the air getting people going 10 miles over the speed limit in the country. No traffic. It was for revenue generation. In Canada, government is mother. The Queen owns every inch of property in Canada, and she lets you use it. That's the way the property laws are written. And I like Canada. I'm a citizen. I'm a dual citizen. But they've got some goofy laws in that regard. They don't have our goofy mortgage laws. They reset the interest on a 30-year mortgage every 5 years, and that's why they're not in trouble.
Anyone else? Well, I think that we have covered a lot of ground here. It's been very efficient.
Please read my site. There's a lot of stuff there, and it's all in an orderly fashion and issues and so forth.
Good. I'll give you each 2 minutes for closing statements if you like.